Hey guys, what's going on? This is Liam, and right now I'm going to make a video for your ENT. So, unfortunately, despite my best attempts, there are still people saying, and unfortunately that means they're convincing other people of two falsehoods. These two falsehoods are that tinnitus is for life, bullshit, and that tinnitus cannot be, a volume of your tinnitus cannot be decreased by changing your diet. Ridiculous. These people also preach, because apparently they can choose what works and what doesn't and just give it to the whole world with no proof whatsoever. They preach that changing your attitude and just becoming a monk, basically, even though Eckhart Tolle still has tinnitus, but don't talk about that. Don't talk about the fact that Eckhart Tolle still has tinnitus and he's enlightened, so what hope does that really have for anyone else, okay? The fact is that they say that stress reduction and habituation is the only way to address tinnitus. Well, that's really interesting because as far as I know, and just call me crazy, but serotonin and dopamine are made in the gut. They're made in the gut, and your gut is affected by, what is it? It's that stuff that you put in your mouth that starts with the word F. Food, that's it. So a lot of people really are going around and talking about things that they don't know anything about. The point I made then, if you missed it, was that food must directly affect your sense of well-being, your happiness. It can also cause anxiety, depression, dementia with association. Read books on it. Stop Googling information. Stop YouTubing for information. Once again, if you hear me mispronounce things, okay, and say it incorrectly, it's because I don't learn this stuff from YouTube or Google or memes. It's because I read it in literature, and they don't vocalize it in literature. They just write it down. So, speaking of literature, this is something that you can show to your ENT when they join both parties and say there's nothing you can do and diet doesn't help. Here we have a scientific study from 2004. Depending on when you're watching this video, that is 16 years ago. Okay, so I'm going to help you understand this, okay? I'm not a scientist, and I sometimes have to have people help me understand these this literature because it's hard to understand, but I understand this one, so I'll break it down for you, okay? So hyperinsulinemia and tinnitus, a historical cohort, okay? Abstract. So abstract means the basic idea of what they're doing in the thesis and what they're trying to achieve and what they think they'll achieve, okay? And why. Abstract. Tinnitus affects millions of people worldwide. So that's very true. And it signals the presence of several underlying issues, including hyperinsulinemia. That basically means you're becoming diabetic. Type 2. The aim of this study was to evaluate the response to dietary treatment in 80 patients with associated tinnitus and hyperinsulinemia. This is water, by the way. So associated tinnitus and hyperinsulinemia means they have both. It doesn't mean they're causal yet. On the basis of data obtained by a questionnaire. Now, this is epidemiology. So you could say this is weak science. That's very true because epidemiology is questionnaire, and you'll see why in a bit, but I'll break it down for you why it still shouldn't be ignored. Okay? Two groups were established. One included patients who followed the prescribed diet. The other group included patients who did not comply with a treatment, so placebo basically. The likelihood of improving tinnitus symptoms was 5-fold higher in hyperinsulinemic patients who followed the diet than in those who did not. Okay? Relative risk. It goes on to give the statistics, okay? In addition, resolution of tinnitus was reported by 15% of the patients who follow the diet as compared to 0% of those who did not. That means complete eradication, curing of tinnitus. This is enough to just show your ENT. Can someone please fucking tell me, riddle me this, why is it okay for ENTs to still say that tinnitus cannot be affected by diet and that it is permanently for life, it is incurable? I'm being serious. Can somebody please show me, tell me, explain to me, reveal to me, whisper it in my fucking ear through a cup and string, why is it still okay for ear, nose and throat specialists to shove that horse shit down people's throats and ruin their lives? It makes people give up. They lose hope. Fucking travesty. His findings underscore the importance of including hyperinsulinemia into the routine diagnostic investigation of patients with tinnitus, regardless of whether associated with neurosensory or dysacousis or vertigo or both. Okay, got the keywords there. So I will cut this video up a little bit so I can basically get to the most important bits. Okay, I've read it, but I'm just going to go through the entire thing here. Okay, so essentially what they're doing is they're associating blood flow and metabolism issues with tinnitus here, with the involvement of excessive amounts of carbohydrates. In my view, any carbohydrates at all. Okay. Okay, it has been shown that patients with tinnitus and metabolic disorders experience improvement of symptoms after a high fiber diet, also finding described by Kraft. Now, one thing about that, in my view, it's not, so fiber's plants. In my view, it's not the plants that are helping, okay? It's the eradication of carbohydrates. So that's why, let me explain. So many people say, oh, I went vegan and I just felt so healthy and all my health problems cleared up. I bet they did, I really do. But was it that you cut out the junk food or that you went vegan? And have you tested eating nothing but meat? They haven't tested eating nothing but meat. And then we get in, from what I've seen, from doing this for a long time and helping hundreds of people get silence, it's going all meat that gets a better result than going vegan. Why would my number one clients be vegan otherwise? It's just, so there's that to think about. That shouldn't be ignored. Okay, so between 84 and 92% of patients with idiopathic means that it just came from nowhere, there's no cause, present with hyperinsulinemia. It's a metabolic disorder. Okay, let's see. A logical result of this close clinically demonstrated relationship between tinnitus and, let's just say, pre-diabetes, okay, is that the dietary treatment results in decrease of tinnitus symptoms, sort of volume of tinnitus, in a significant percentage of patients. Changing your diet reduces tinnitus. Oh my God, what a shock. Who would have known? Okay, oh wait, there are studies from 70 years ago saying this exact same thing. From the 1950s, you can find scientific literature that proves that tinnitus, hyperacusis, pulsatile tinnitus, vertigo, Meniere's disease can be 100% resolved with dietary changes. Fuck me silly. So you got to remember, guys, that I've shown you before like a pie graph, and the pie graph is just a very small aspect of, the food. Changing your diet is a very small slice of the pie in terms of getting silence. Light, EMF, stress, exercise, cold temperature therapy, fasting, mold, yeast, chelation. It's complicated. But still, look at you're going to see these results, and it's amazing. It's incredible. So let me see what is really worth you saying. Let's just read this bit here down the bottom. Hyperinsulinemic patients in who the patient's inner ear is compromised frequently present with insulin reactive hypoglycemia. Very interesting. In these patients, hypoglycemia almost always results from excessive production of insulin and is not in general a primary metabolic disorder. Okay, so now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of it. Thus, according to the aforementioned criteria, I'll link below so you can just read this yourself, patients who've diagnosed hyperinsulinemia, regardless of association with insulin-reactive hypoglycemia, were submitted to dietary therapy based on the Updegraff diet, that's a person by the way, Updegraff diet for a minimum of 2 years and under the supervision of a nutritionist. Okay, patients were asked to eat every 3 hours to prevent hypoglycemia. I wouldn't have done that. Even if you can phase out of that. To avoid refined sugar, or to use artificial sweeteners. Stupid idea. Just cut them both out. To restrict their intake of fatty foods. Terrible idea. To take no more. To take no more than 2 cups of coffee a day. So restrict it. Should have eliminated it. To limit their intake of alcoholic beverages, to eliminate it. Okay, should have just eliminated it. Okay, and to drink 4 to 6 glasses of water a day. Pretty good idea as long as it's clean. So it's basically they're taking things out of their diet. So just so you know, to determine that they had hyperinsulinemia, they did what's called a glucose loading test, which basically shows that you get a test. You basically drink sugar water and you get a test and you see where your insulin is. And if you're hyperinsulinemic, it will just stay up and slowly go down. But if you have a normal insulin and if your beta cells and your pancreas and your insulin and your glucose is all working together in harmony and your insulin is taking glucose safely to your cells, you'll go like this. But if you're hyperinsulinemic, it will go like that. okay? So of the 80 patients interviewed, 59 had followed the diet. Okay, so let's get on to our first piece of data here, which is very cool. So the light grey bars represent people who followed the diet, and the dark grey bars represent people who did not follow the diet. So the 80% of the people who did not follow the diet saw no improvement. Big shock there, okay? 24% of the people who followed the diet saw no improvement as well, okay? So let's see, 0% of the people who did not follow the diet didn't see some improvement, so they selected another option. 22% of the people who follow the diet, okay, saw significant improvement. 39% of the people who follow the diet saw significant improvement. Okay, significant improvement. Okay, 14% of the people who did not follow the diet saw significant improvement too. Okay, and 50% of the people who follow the diet saw that it disappeared, the tinnitus went away completely, and 0% of the people who did not follow the diet lost their tinnitus. So basically, if they didn't follow the diet, they didn't get results. Simple as that. Now, you have to also understand when it comes to epidemiology that they're survey based and people lie on surveys. So how are we to know that the people who didn't see any improvement didn't lie about it and maybe they cheated every day or every other day? And how are we also to not know that the people who saw significant improvements weren't sneaking fatty meats, okay? Maybe these people were still drinking coffee 5 times a day and are doing everything else, and so they didn't see results. Maybe these people cut out everything but not one thing. Maybe these people, they rocked up to the study and they saw what other people were doing. These people here, rocked up to the study and saw what other people were doing and thought, you know what, I want to give that a go too. I'm just going to tell people that I'm not doing it, but I'm going to do it. You don't know. This was not done in a metabolic ward. A metabolic ward would be like locking you in a room and they can watch you and make sure that you only eat the things that you say you're eating. Therefore, no survey is needed. So that's the problem with questionnaires and epidemiology. But you can still see it's pretty clear, okay? And tinnitus is it's something measurable, okay? And you can see up here they do an array of tests. They do questionnaires in the beginning, and they also do an array of tests as well. So here we move to patient compliance, reduction of tinnitus symptoms after dietary intervention, okay? So we have 59 people who follow the diet, 21 people who did not. Out of the 59 people who followed the diet, 45 people experienced reduction, okay? 14 did not. That's well over 50%, okay? Well over, okay. So, abnormal carbohydrate metabolism, which basically we all have because carbohydrates aren't human food, appears to be the most prevalent metabolic disorder associated with tinnitus with or without disociasis and vertigo. The investigation of abnormal carbohydrate metabolism should be an obligatory step in the diagnosis and therapy of tinnitus patients. Did you hear that? What they're saying is they can glean from this study that anyone who has tinnitus should be trying to fix their metabolic disorders associated with carbohydrates. So basically stop eating carbs. Carbohydrate metabolism disorders include a wide range of manifestations, each of which has peculiarities of presentation, diagnosis, and management, although they may represent different stages of the same physiopathogenic process. Hypoglycemic states are characterized by fasting, hypoglycemia, and glucose intolerance resulting from deficient insulin action, so you fucked your diet, with or without the presence of hyperinsulinemia. Okay? Let's see. Hypoglycemic patients may present with cochlear vestibular disorders, though three main mechanisms which may act in isolation or in association: neuropathy of the 8th cranial pair, vasculopathy of the smaller vessels, and interference with the action of the sodium-potassium ATPase pump at the level of the inner ear. I've spoken about that before. Okay, I've spoken about polyradiculopathy, interference with the nerves. I've spoken about the MET channel, the mechanological transduction channel, which turns vibration into electricity. I've spoken about the sodium-potassium pump. Your ears use potassium ions in a form to transfer the sound down the stereocilia down into the nerve. Okay, using the mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum for energy, and you better have some good fuel for that, which is what this whole thing is about, which is not carbohydrates. Okay, this one's interesting. Okay, the type of disorder is clinically expressed by the occurrence of tinnitus. We're talking about eating shit food, which, not really, is associated with bilateral, often symmetrical progressive neurosensory dysacousis. Okay, the administration of insulin probably reduces the oxygen level in the inner ear. Okay, the increase of the osmotic pressure of the endolymph, that's the water inside the cochlea, as a result of the increased concentration of sodium, okay, is another predictable consequence of these ionic disorders. Remember, again, potassium ions involved in hearing, okay, causing the endolymphatic hydrops, okay, not good, okay, notably, carbohydrate metabolism disorders are one of the most possible etiologies, okay, of Meniere's syndrome. Etiology means cause. Okay, in patients with Meniere's disease or Meniere's disease, whatever you want to call it, tinnitus may occur either along or in association with dysacousis, oral fullness, or vertigo. So a lot of you have hyperacusis, vertigo, pulsatile tinnitus, and tinnitus. Unlike other complications, it may present as an acute and usually reversible, at least in some part, or as in a chronic situation. Okay, remember, there's that non-curable thing again. In which at least some level of involvement is irreversible. I doubt that. The acute development of one or more of these symptoms usually occurs in the presence of an important hydroglycemic or hyperglycemic episode resulting in temporary imbalance of the inner ear. Talk about Meniere's disease. As diabetic patients present with pertinent or recurrent disorders that can hinder cochlear vestibular function. That's the nerve, the cochlear vestibular nerve goes from your ear to your brain, okay? Sensory organs are gradually injured, okay, producing irreversible disorders. I doubt that. It's not irreversible, okay? And I've seen it been reversed. And the people who've had it for decades have reversed it, okay? And they've been told they're totally fucked by their ENTs, and they're not. Big surprise. ENTs don't know anything about tinnitus. What a shock. The sky's falling. You can tell I'm not bitter about this at all, okay? Then it basically goes on, okay? I encourage you to go and read this study, okay? Sure, the numbers are small. Sure, it's epidemiology, but people got better, okay? If anyone can get better from fixing their diet, okay, and whatever else is involved in the study, then I'm sure you can too. Just because your ENT says you can't fix tinnitus, and just because, look, the people on forums who give advice on tinnitus and tell you it's for life, that's a joke. Like, children are going to be children no matter how old they are. Remember, being a child is a state of mind, it's not an age. So, hope this helps somewhat. You can take this, you can even send it to your ENT. I'm going to put the link below. Send it to your ENT, and if they come back with some bullshit excuse, just maybe they just don't care about you. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way life is. Some people just don't care. And if you remember, cognitive dissonance is a thing, which means that the trouble you go through mentally when someone provides you with information contradicting your own beliefs. Because to say that tinnitus is unfixable is a belief. It's not backed by science. It's not true. It's completely false. It's unprovable. It's not provable that tinnitus is for life. It's a theory, and it's been disproven again and again. It's been proven for over 70 years, okay? Ridiculous. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this. Send it to your ENT, and have a great day.